We're here for another edition of the Giants Huddle podcast brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. Joined live from Indianapolis at the NFL Combine, NFL insider Ian Rapoport. Ian, what's going on, man? How are you?
I made it here amidst the snow and craziness, so I'm doing very well.
Yeah, you're a better traveler than I am. We can put that down. So let's start
Nailed
here.
it.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's your job to kind of get a sense for what this NFL offseason is going to look like. What are some of the biggest things that you're waiting on to happen that you think will give you the biggest guide of what this free agency process and draft process will look like?
Yeah, I mean, the way the NFL offseason works, it's like the Combine is a little bit of a sort of anomaly, I guess, for lack of a better word. Like it drops in the middle of draft, it's like the draft process drops in the middle of free agency. So there's this, and obviously we'll be focused on this here, but it's really like who gets franchise tag, because every year there's like all these lists of free agents and you can like lop off the top like 8 or something because usually they get tagged. How many get tagged this year? And then I think the other thing is like who's available for trades, because it's like we've seen teams, general managers are much more willing to risk and do trades than I think we've ever seen before. I mean, we saw this. This year the trade deadline went crazy in a way that nobody expected because everybody was sort of willing to take a risk. So like who's getting tagged, who's available for trade, and then it's like, all right, now who's everybody going to sign?
Who are the guys that you are keeping an eye on that could be potential big name players that get moved?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say first of all the quarterbacks. Like does Tua Tagovailoa get moved? Does Kyler Murray get moved? I mean, that those are certainly interesting ones to kind of keep our eyes on. And there's a lot of quarterbacks who are kind of out there now. It's, what happens to Geno, what happens to Justin Fields. I mean, there's, where does Malik Willis go? Obviously wouldn't be a trade, would be a signing, but it's like, always a lot of quarterbacks. And then, some of the big name guys we've been discussing, like what happens to Max Crosby. John Spytek earlier today said he believes that, he's going to be on the Raiders. It's like, okay, well, Cowboys said a lot of things about Micah Parsons, and he plays for the Packers now. So we'll see what happens this offseason. But, obviously those things we're all going to be monitoring.
It's in the division, so I'm curious. What's your feel for two big wide receivers, A.J. Brown and George Pickens, and then Pickens?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for A.J. Brown, like anything is possible. It feels more now like it's trending toward him staying. And actually, like a trade, I don't know that it makes the most sense for Philly. Like, what they could get, there's a huge cap penalty because they've extended him a couple times. You could do it. You can trade anybody you want. I just don't know, like, trading away a really good player and then you get what? Like, what are you going to get for, like, almost 30, very expensive player who's coming off maybe not the best statistical year? Like, what would that be? So I don't know that makes sense. We'll see, but I don't know that makes sense. I think for George Pickens, the Cowboys are tagging him. We know that. A trade is an interesting thing to watch because they've been among the teams that have been more cognizant about being too top heavy, and they've drafted so well and the trades they've made have worked. Is it too much at one position? So I think that, are they willing to trade George Pickens is certainly something to keep an eye on.
Huddle up, get in here. If you're lined up here, you gotta go over the middle with it to score.
Right. How do we make that happen?
I don't know, but Citizens does.
Make sense of your money with Citizens, official bank of Eli Manning.
Looking for more than just a ticket? Elevate Experiences delivers VIP access to the world's biggest events, from the Super Bowl to NASCAR to PGA Tour tournaments. Don't just attend. Elevate the experience at elevateexperiences.com. All right, let's talk about the Giants now. They obviously bring in John Harbaugh this offseason. Where do you think the Giants will most feel his impact in terms of this player acquisition process we're going to go on over the next few months?
I don't know that, like, the fans are going to feel any of this, right? I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about, like, structure and, like, a couple new hires. And, it's like none of the fans are going to care about how Don Aponte helps the organization. None of the fans are going to care about, like, what a really good analytics staff, what a really good training staff. Like, they're not going to see any of that. But to me, like, you hire a coach like John Harbaugh, and the infrastructure, which is so boring and not interesting, is the best. Okay, because what he has done, and I know, like, the culture in Baltimore is excellent. Eric DeCosta has done a really, really good job at setting the culture with the Ravens. Well, John Harbaugh was there doing it. I mean, he did it. And so, like, the expectations of everyone in the building, not just the players, creating the staff structure that he wants, creating the way things are done the way he wants. Like, he is very particular and serious and knows what it takes to win, knows how to do it. And I think that's, to me, is where the impact is going to be. Like, fans are not going to see any of that. But I think in the building, how this organization is run is going to be, I think it's going to be a dramatic improvement. And I think those in the building, just as far as processes and like what everyone's expectations are, I think they're gonna really feel that.
Ian, Giants have a bunch of mid-level free agents they have to sort through. Wan'Dale Robinson, Jermaine Illuminor, Cordell Flott. How do you see the market kind of shaping up for those guys and how the Giants might approach trying to bring them back, assuming they could clear the amount of cap space they need to do in terms of reworking contracts, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, you can always clear the space. I would say, Illuminor has been really good. That was a good signing. I would say Wan'Dale Robinson is intriguing to me. Not just because I hung out with him at the Kentucky Derby, we took a nice picture together. He's been really productive. And I know he's had a couple injuries, but he's been really productive when he's been out there. And like a lot of discussion about like Alec Pierce and so, Pickens, obviously. Given how productive he's been, like, I think Wan'Dale Robinson is headed toward a really, really nice payday. I mean, he has earned it. He's gotten here. Like, I think there's a lot to like with the Giants. And I would say if you like having a quarterback like Jackson Dart, I think there's a lot of reasons that he might want to stay. But it could be expensive because he really has earned what I think should be a really, really nice situation in free agency.
If you want to know how to manage 2 minutes of crunch time football, I'm your man. But if you're wondering about a long-term financial plan, you should talk to Citizens. Hey, I can also talk lawn care.
I'd like to learn about a mowing routine.
Yes, I knew I could help.
Make sense of your money with Citizens.
The Giants Huddle Podcast is brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the New York Giants. From game day celebrations to your everyday financial needs, Big Blue fans can get the most out of everyone with Citizens. Learn more at citizensbank.com/Giants. We're coming to you from the Hackensack Marine Hill Podcast Studio. Keep getting better. Would you expect the Giants to be very aggressive in going after outside free agents, maybe bringing over some of those guys that have familiarity with that type of culture you were talking about that John Harbaugh would like to install here? Maybe some guys that used to play for him, for example.
Yeah, I could see that. And I think a lot of times that's what new coaches do is you bring in guys you're familiar, whether it's staff or players. So, what you sort of try to do is you try to get a guy in each room. Guy in the linebacker room, guy in the secondary, offensive line, like whatever it is, to kind of translate what the staff is doing. So, it's not just Harbaugh. It's like, might you have an offensive player that Matt Nagy has been with? Might. So it's like all those steps along the way, you try to find guys who are familiar with the coaches, they could sort of translate the message.
A final question, I know you got to run. In terms of guys that the Giants have under contract already, any guys you might think might be in line for an extension coming up here? Thibodeau's heading into his 5th-year option. Dexter Lawrence has 2 years left on his deal. Anything fans should keep an eye on in regards to any of those types of guys?
Yeah, Thibodeau is a guy, that I'd be sort of wondering about, which is, he's been a topic of trade discussions externally for the last couple of years. It feels like it's like generally you really don't let go of like productive, talented pass rushers. So, we'll see what happens. I'm sure people are going to be interested, but like a lot of times those are the guys you want to keep. But that's certainly a name that I'm sort of monitoring, keep my eyes on.
Ian, good stuff. Enjoy the combine and don't make the nights too late, my friend.
I'll see what I can do. Thank you, man.
All right. Thanks, Ian. That's Ian Rapoport. Excellent job. Insider from NFL Network. Of course, you can check out NFL Network's coverage of the combine all week long. Thank you for joining us on the Giants Huddle Podcast, brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. Coming to you from the Hackensack Marine Hill Podcast Studio. Keep getting better. We'll see you next time, everybody.